Welcome to the first session of the Remarkable Women, Powerful Stories, a leadership series by Zonta International. Today, we have a broad global audience with participants from so many different time zones. I thank you most sincerely for choosing to spend the next 45 minutes with me and a very special guest at our inaugural conversation. I am Lynn Foley, Chairman of the Zonta International Leadership Development Committee, and it is an honour and a privilege to host this leadership series. I wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I am meeting today and all of you are meeting, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and also pay that respect to any First Nations people present. Zonta International is a leading global organisation of professionals empowering women worldwide through service and advocacy. In 1919, a small group of founders in Buffalo, New York, had a vision to help all women realise greater equality. Today, more than 28,000 members in 63 countries work together to make gender equality a worldwide reality for women and girls. Since 1923, Zonta International has provided more than $41.2 million US to empower women and girls and expand their access to education, healthcare, economic opportunities and safe living conditions. My guest today is Sharon Langenbeck, Ph.D., President of Zonta International and Zonta Foundation for Women, 2020 to 2022. Sharon was voted the President-elect at the Zonta International Convention in Yokohama in 2018. She's previously served as Vice President, International Director and in various other leadership roles. Sharon retired in 2008 from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, where she held both line and project management positions. While section manager of mechanical engineering, she managed more than 200 engineers designing and developing space flight hardware and was responsible for all technical, cost and schedule performance of the section's business. Before joining JPL in 1990, Sharon spent 11 years at the Lockheed-California Company, where she held both line and project management positions. While working at Lockheed, she was also a part-time faculty member at the California State University at Northridge, where she taught classes in structural materials. Sharon received her engineering degrees in mechanical and aerospace engineering from the University of Missouri, Columbia. She received her Bachelor of Science in 1974, Master of Science in 1976 and Ph.D. in 1979. In 1977 and 1978, while pursuing her doctorate, she was awarded the Zonta International Amelia Earhart Fellowship. Welcome to you, Sharon. It's so lovely to have you with us today.
Thank you, Lynn.
So,
wonderful to be here.
Thank you. Yes, it is. It's a lovely day in my part of the world, and I guess there in California, it's in winter and things are going well.
Yes.
You've had a stellar professional career in the mechanical and aerospace engineering field alongside your outstanding achievements with Zonta International, both locally and globally, and your interest in the mini vineyard at your home in California. To begin today, I'd like to ask you what motivates and drives you in your leadership roles?
Well, I think it's a basic characteristic that I have, and it's a desire to exceed, to excel in what I do, and to use my capabilities. You know, I've had an education, I've had experiences, and I want to apply those to the things that I am doing. And so where I can make a difference, I want to, and that is what motivates me in my leadership, to take that opportunity to move to the next step, to improve things. And I use that, my background, as much as I can.
Thanks. And that's very interesting to be able to, perhaps the notion of giving back or putting something back into the world around you, Sharon.
Yes.
I also know you have many passions in the time that I've spent with you in recent times. Of these passions, which one's top of your list right now?
Well, you know, on a real high level, it's to make the world better. But for where I am today and how I spend my life, it's how to make things better for women and girls. I do that professionally, and I do that even for people who are not engineers, that I want to help others. And to me, that is what motivates me, is to make a difference, to be able to see those changes, and where I can help women and girls achieve the next level for their accomplishments and what they want to do, it's really important. And then when I see these barriers to that happening, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's human trafficking, the different things that we encounter in our world today, I want to have those barriers removed. I had barriers when I was in my profession. I encountered barriers, and I know that that can be very devastating. So I want to see what we can do to remove barriers and achieve those goals of having a better world, a better life, in particular for women and girls.
And that's a really, as you said, to start with, a very big and broad approach to your world. But given that you're a global leader now, I guess that fits really nicely with the work that you're doing with Zonta International and the work that you continue to do in your profession. Our audience, I know, will be interested in hearing how you work towards achieving your leadership aspirations and becoming a role model for other women, because I believe you are a role model for other women. And it occurred to me as you were talking about your passions just then, it would be interesting, I think, as you talk about your aspirations, as to how your passions have changed. Maybe your passions as a younger woman may have been different to what they are today in terms of the world around you. So I'll leave that to you to respond how you see fit.
It's interesting, you know, when I reflect back, and we don't always reflect back on our lives very often, but when you think about what it was 30 years ago, 40 years ago, certainly going to school in a male-dominated field, I saw gender inequality, and I saw that then when I took my first jobs. But it was a very, I want to call it local, because it was my profession, it was my local community, it was my industry. And joining Zonta, those initial years, I was still very local. It was the local community. But when I started taking on positions, leadership positions, going to my first convention and engaging with Zonta in that more worldly sense, all of a sudden I started to see things in a different light. And it took me from that narrow focus of, this is my profession, this is what I do. Yes, I see gender inequality, but now seeing it on a worldwide basis and seeing the different cultures. To me, that was just an eye-opener, and really focused me for the years to come then as I advanced in the Zonta world as well as in my profession, because we had international students that came to be working with us maybe in the summer, or we hired international students. And so my work with Zonta gave me a better appreciation and understanding of their backgrounds. And so it was easier to integrate them into an industry here in the United States in Southern California. So they came together, it broadened, but they really had synergy between the two. And I just felt that that was a really benefit to my own growth and my own development, was having that in both the professional side and in the nonprofit side.
Yes, it sort of was like two bookends, perhaps, to the woman you've developed into or changed into today. How do you think you've worked towards achieving those aspirations? If you go back to when you were that 20 or 25-year-old engineer in whether it was male dominated or not, which I know it was, to now, do you have a recollection or a reflection on how you might have worked towards achieving the aspiration of leadership, where you now are very much established as a strong global leader?
I think my approach from both schooling to starting my career was, don't accept me because I have a degree or I finished high school this number in my class. I wanted to perform, to show you what I could do. And I was always striving for those opportunities. And I felt that I didn't want to be accepted because I'm a woman and therefore you should make room for the woman in a male dominated field. I wanted to show my performance. And then that would speak for itself. I didn't have to do anything more after that. And so it was really, you know, driven to, throughout my career, is just make those opportunities available to me. And I will show you what I can do. Then you make your decision of how you want to progress me within the organization, or what are the next steps. And so I was always striving to be able to prove my capabilities.
So it's that always performing to the highest potential that you have and beyond that at times. That's what leads to success. I know that's what I believe. And you know, if there isn't any performance and we don't deliver what we're expected to deliver, then we're not going to get anywhere. And I think, I hope I've summarised that
Yes.
somewhat accurately, Sharon.
Oh, most definitely, most definitely.
So that performance matters. It's get in and do the very, very best job you can in whatever that job is that you are doing at the time.
Right, right.
Lovely.
And I didn't shy away from competition. You know, it was, even when I was in high school and science fairs, I welcomed that competition because I grew with that competition. And so I think those were important too, is that I had some ways of measuring myself against someone else, and having competition is always good.
I think that's right. And I do recall someone I know quite well making reference to having an overdeveloped achievement gene. It's that piece about wanting to achieve, and it's not so much ambition, is it? It's more about how am I going against other people in my profession, or how am I going against my class, or how am I going in whatever it is I'm doing now. And that constant measuring oneself, I think that's what you're speaking about, isn't it? It's measuring yourself against it.
Right. Yes, definitely.
And competition is not a bad thing, is it? It's a very motivating thing. Yes. So I think, and you mentioned it in passing just a moment ago, is about developing capability. Another theme I'd just like to take you down for a short while is, how did you approach that developing skills as a leader? Because I think in professions we develop skills, our technical skills in our profession as we go, but then that leadership is a very, very different skill set. It's a technical stream all of its own. So how did you go about getting that? Did you do that, I guess, knowingly or formally?
I think I did it knowingly, but also it was kind of always in the background. I did a lot of observing. And when you work in a large organization, you have different managers and leaders that you look at. And I would really study and say, what is successful? What are they doing that I like? What are the things that I think are motivating to others? What are successes? And I also saw some managers do things that I went, I don't ever want to have that, be doing that in a position of leadership. But I also asked a lot of questions, and that was, I think, very important for my learning, is that I combined that observing with the questions. And so it started to shape what I wanted. And it's interesting, I have, you know, the doctorate in mechanical and aerospace engineering. And when I was starting to work at Lockheed after a few years, I even said, maybe, because I knew I wanted to move up in the management and be the decision maker as opposed to the implementer of the decision. I said, maybe I need to go back to school and get an MBA. But then I decided that the on-the-job was more applicable because of the industry that I worked in. And I felt that I wanted to broaden. And one of the things too that helped was I did a lot of job changes. Every few years, I never wanted to be, I stayed with the company, but I moved around. And that offered me a lot of opportunities to see these different styles, to say and develop my own style from what I observed. And so I always tried to pick the best, and and learn from them.
And that's obviously worked very, very well for you, Sharon, because of where you are today as that global role model. So moving in, I'll move a little more into that space of the visible role model. I'm not sure whether it's a fair thing to say that still today, when women get to the pinnacle of leadership achievement, such as being the global leader of an organisation like Zonta International, whether we're much more on display or we're much more visible. But let's let that sit in the air for the moment. But how do you embrace your role? You will have been a very beacon on a hill leader, I think, in your profession, and also now with Zonta. So if we take that as an accepted truth, well, I'm going to put that forward to you as an accepted truth of that visible role model. How do you think you deal with that or embrace that? What does that feel like for you, and how do you embrace it?
Well, I think that my approach is I've got to be me. I've got to, at the end of the day, know that that was who I am at heart. And I'm not something else because I have a title or a position. As I said in my installation speech, I am just Sharon, and I will always be just Sharon. And one of the things that I want as a leader is that I'm approachable, that people see me as I can come up to the president and talk to them, talk to her. And I think that's so important, that you don't change with position and title. You stay true to yourself, to your beliefs, to your leadership style, and because it's been what brought you along to the successes you have gotten to. And to be successful, you need to be true to yourself. And so I just want to come across as it's me, it's always me, and I am just Sharon.
And that's how people are drawn to you, I suspect, is that because of that, being just an approachable person, someone who's willing to listen and to be there. And you happen to hold a title, but you don't, I think titles, we don't have to wear that title as a badge of honour. We are just who we are, maybe doing extraordinary work, and that's a very good thing. I think as we've come into the conversation today, Sharon, you've covered some of that space of growing into, as a young woman, that male-dominated space of engineering, which is thankfully these days much less dominated. There's much more gender equity in the engineering world and the aerospace worlds than there was back when you and I were both coming through university. And you've talked a little bit about how that shaped your approach to gender equality. So might I be bold enough to take you into the space of, would you describe yourself as a feminist?
Yes.
And if not, maybe you'd like to engage in a conversation with me about that.
Well, you know, from when I was able to get into a position where I could influence the next generation, I think that's where my feminism really came out, is that I wanted to offer those opportunities, that I looked and gave guidance to the next generation. And so I think that's where I really got it developed, is I wanted to see things change. And so I did that in my roles, through job assignments, through hiring, through guiding young people to going to grade schools and giving talks. There were a lot of ways that I could show that there is an ability to have gender equality, and we want to strive for that. So it was in daily actions, it was with purpose of trying to share knowledge.
Thank you. That's lovely to hear that. I think I might change topic now and move into another part of leadership, if you okay, Sharon. You've often spoken with me in the time that we've been working together in this work in this biennium. You've spoken to me a lot about the power of mentoring and the place of mentoring in the life, particularly of women. Maybe we could start with how you had mentors in your life, if you did. Did you have mentors along the stages of your life, and how did that play out for you?
I had a few mentors that came into my life as I went. Certainly when I was in high school, a math teacher who was very much mentoring me to go into a profession that involved mathematics and science. But in terms of my profession, with working with men and being the only woman in meetings and the only woman, I didn't have the female role model, but I did have some male mentors that would help. And it was really interesting. The ones that would help the most were those that had a daughter, and they would see what would happen. That here I was, maybe not given the right opportunities that a male would have been given, or in the job selection, oh, it was a male interviewers who were going to make the decision, and they were leaning to their male counterpart to be selected. But it was when the male manager had a daughter and they'd go, I don't want my daughter to face the same things that I'm seeing here. My daughter's in high school. She wants to do this. And so those were the ones who were able to help, and they were able to open doors. And so those were who I would gravitate to, because I knew that they understood the situation I was in.
That's a really interesting thought, isn't it? Because so much is talked about and written about mentoring for women needs to come from both men and women. It's not exclusively that women need to mentor women, or as women, we don't need to always seek out female mentors. I think I don't know how you feel, but I think it's useful for us to have had female role models, people we can look to and say, I can aspire to that, that line that says, we can't be what we cannot see. And so sometimes I think early in careers, we may not have been able to see some of the things that we wanted to become or we could become. And that's a very interesting comment about we need men to take on the challenge of gender equality alongside of us and walk in partnership with us into that challenge of gender equality and working with women, perhaps. And I think you've explained that it's partly what happened to you. Can you talk a bit more about the value those mentors brought to you, particularly relating to leadership, if you were lucky enough to have a mentor in that space?
Well, I think the encouragement, I would try to have someone that I could speak to who was not in my chain of command. And so looking at mentors who, I think you look at it in multiple levels. You look at the safe ones who have nothing to do with your industry but have achieved. And so you get some broad sense of mentoring there. Then you want someone who is knowledgeable of your company and knowing the company cultures that are important, because every company is unique. Your work environment is unique. And so someone who can provide that mentoring in your unique situation is important. And then you also need somebody really in your chain of command that is someone who you can go to and ask questions, maybe not in the same way of a true mentor because they are in your boss line, up, but having someone, because it's really important to work with the mentor within your company to express what you want. People are not mind readers. I was never a mind reader. If an employee didn't say something to me of what their goals and interests were, I didn't know. I mean, I had a lot of people that I worked with. So having someone within your company, having a couple people in different ways, different parts of the organization is really important. And then also by having multiple mentors, you get a broader perspective and you can then make your decision of what you want to do, where you want to go. You don't want to rely on just one person.
I think that's important. And I think maybe the summary there is ask for what you want. It's really important to be very clear about what it is we want out of life, or else, as you say, no one's going to just know that.
Yeah.
Can I draw you on the notion of what do you think are the characteristics of remarkable leaders? What do you think the characteristics are that they have in common?
a constant desire to learn, to listen, to be open, and to have a sense of timeliness. There's things happen. You need to be able to make decisions in a timely manner. And I think in terms of leadership, it's a constant evolution. You have to constantly be learning. You have to look at what the, so to speak, the lay of the land is as you have your leadership. Nothing is constant. Every situation is different. Time moves on. Our experiences move on. I'm not the same person I was yesterday. Something may have happened that changed my perspectives. And so I think a leader needs to have that global corporate awareness, those aspects that really come to play in how to be successful, and that constant desire to learn more, to experience more.
Absolutely. What are your greatest gifts that I guess describe or fit within your leadership style? What do you think your one or two greatest gifts are that create the leadership style that you have?
I think positive attitude is one, and this desire to learn, and as I mentioned, being approachable. I think that's an important aspect of who I am, and why I am successful in that is being my openness to being able to talk and to gain that knowledge firsthand.
Many women that I speak with and talk and work with raise with me the issue of developing self-confidence and self-belief and the ability to claim their space, particularly in the professional world. What do you rely on to boost your confidence and resilience when these are low, or when you've had a setback or a challenge? And that might lead you into some ideas to assist our audience today.
Well, my husband is my biggest fan, and I'm very fortunate because he is also in the aerospace field. So we worked at the same companies. We worked at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. So one of the things that when I encountered issues, he knew who I was talking about, and so he was able to help me work through some of those challenges. My family was always, my parents, my sister, always very supportive when I had those down moments. And that when I got a C in a class in college, it was, who do I go to? And that. And so, you know, my parents, it was okay. It was okay. But I also have to take a time for myself. It's always important when I know that I'm frustrated, when there's challenges. I want to make sure that I have taken some time to retreat, to go back and just let things happen, calm down, get my thoughts together, and my positive attitude comes back. But I do have those down moments. But I'm basically that positive person, and if I can take some time, it will come back.
It's really important having that cheerleader and fan, isn't it, in our lives. I also have my partner who is that for me, and yeah, without it, it makes life tougher. I'm wondering if you're willing to very, very quickly cover a tough challenge you might have had. I do hear the C in the college class, which to a lot of people wouldn't be seen as a tough challenge, but to yourself it was. But a tough challenge that you might have come across and overcome that. Is there anything you'd like to share? It's okay if you prefer not to.
One of my challenges was working in an organization that was very much command and control, and then but it changed. You know, top level was very much command and control, but as you got further from the high level, you know, you got more into the collaborative types of management. So coming out of that industry and then coming into Zonta Leadership, it's very different, because you don't have that same sort of leadership requirements, so to speak, that you would have coming from an industry that was very much a command and control at the top. So for me, it was a learning curve, which was a challenge, which I took on, but to change how to be a leader in the nonprofit world, and it is different, and I've embraced it. I really want to motivate others, and in that nonprofit, because it fulfills my image of what I want the world to be, is helping others.
Thanks, Sharon. That's a lovely, I guess, comment on the change in the leadership style that's necessary, moving from I guess, discipline to discipline and into the not-for-profit sector in particular. What personal achievement so far in your life are you most proud of?
Well, I'll say my second place first. My second place is that I broke down some barriers for women in the aerospace field. But the most satisfying, most important role for me is being Zonta International president. It just is so, I can't even describe it. It's quite an achievement. And I have heard from so many people, my family, they are so proud of me of this, and they were proud of my scholastic achievements, but Zonta International president by far is number one.
It eclipses pretty much everything, doesn't it? Yeah,
Yes.
Absolutely. And yeah, all I can say is well done, congratulations, which I've said before to you. Pick a lesson you've learned about leadership. Choose a lesson that you think our audience today might learn from, something you learned along the way about leadership.
I think it's working with people and being able to adapt to situations, because every situation is different, and that adaptability and learning, building from your successes, recognizing things that don't work, and moving things forward. You know, we want to make a difference. We want to move forward. We want successes, and we want to make things better for the next generation. So being adaptable and listening and open is something that I really value.
Thanks. As we move to a close of the conversation today, I could continue to talk to you for the next hour and a half, Sharon. It's enlightening, and it's absolutely fun and exciting, and I'm sure our audience is feeling that as we speak today. But we must move to a close and head to that Q&A. But on the way there, part of the Zonta International vision is that Zonta International envisions a world in which women's rights are recognised as human rights, and every woman is able to achieve her full potential. Empowering women and girls is crucial to achieving that gender equality. Can you share your views on that path to gender equality? And I'll put you, of course, into your current role as president of Zonta International.
Well, if I understand correctly, I see education as one of the most important ways in which we can help. We know that a girl who stays another year in high school, in secondary school, it makes a difference for them later. And I see opportunities for making a difference through education. That has been one of my passions. And it's not that somebody has to get a doctorate, somebody has to get a master's. It's simply taking one more step, because that one more step helps. And it also helps education we see as being more successful for societies to be democratic. Education plays a role in society. And when we also can move women into decision-making positions where policies are changed, we can have lasting change. And that's really where we see laws changing, but we need to be supportive of making that happen. We need to advocate for that.
That's such an important part, and I don't know whether it makes us exactly right, Sharon, but for me it's the same, that education matters. As a lifetime educator in my space, different to yours of your aerospace and engineering world, education is crucial to everything, and for women across our world, so terribly important. And Zonta is doing so much towards that in every respect, whether it's in a local club or whether it's a national project or an international project in concert with the United Nations. Zonta contributes every day, I think, in every way towards that through every one of our members. And it's a very lofty goal, but one in which we chip away at. So in 18 months or so, your term as president will come to a close. What legacy do you wish to leave?
I think my legacy would be that I was an inspiration to others, that I inspired them to do a little bit more, to help a little more, to move the needle further to the gender equality that we want. I also have always appreciated the vision of our founders, and being the first president in our second century, I want to take that vision and shape it for our world today. We are not the same as we were 100 years ago. The world has changed, but to just inspire the continuation of that vision and the energy and that those founders had. I mean, they were just driven to making change for women. And I want to inspire that same energy level as we start our second century and follow in the footsteps of our founders and for the next generation to make a difference.
Thank you. And one last thing, what's your one message that you leave to everyone who's listening and watching us today? What's the one message that might inspire and support every person who's listening today? What's that key message to them, Sharon?
I would strive to be a mentor to someone, to help them along. You have knowledge. Everybody has knowledge. You have life skills knowledge. You have your professional knowledge. You have, across the board, people have different experiences, but to share them to the next generation so that they don't have to maybe do something that you knew didn't work. You can help guide them. And so whatever we can do to help that next generation through mentoring is something that we should take on. We need to inspire the next generation. For me, I just want to give you a short story. The hearing back from someone that I have spoken to, and it doesn't have to be in my own field, it can be just a young person perhaps, who I speak to, talk to, tell them about different things, and they share their life. And then I say something or just say, have you thought about this? Not giving them guidance per se, but just asking the questions. And then maybe a week later, a day later, a month later, they come back and they say, thank you. You have inspired me to do X, Y, Z. And it is so important to me to feel like I've been an inspiration to someone.
Sharon, I've had the most remarkable 35 minutes with you this morning, and your powerful and enlightening story. And I've heard some things I didn't know as well. You are a truly remarkable woman, and you happen to be, or not happen to be, you are the leader of our amazing global organisation, Zonta International. So thank you for your time today. Now we're going to move to some Q&A to give our participants today the opportunity to ask some questions of you, and I'll be managing that with Diana in the background, and we'll put some questions to you for the next 5 or 10 minutes that come from our participants. So let's move on to that.
Good, thank you.